You're listening to episode 93 of Liz's Healthy Table.
Looking for a healthy new way to feed your family without the hassle and hype? Welcome to Liz's Healthy Table, where your host, registered dietitian nutritionist Liz Weiss, serves up fresh and flavorful recipes with a tasty side of science, good nutrition, and fun. Are you and your family ready for some wholesome food that tastes great too? Don't change that dial. Your food adventure starts here.
Welcome to the podcast, everyone. On this week's show, if you are like me and you are an empty nester, or if you're newly married, or you just, got a roommate, or you're living with your partner, i.e. there's two of you, then my guest today has all your bases covered when it comes to cooking for two. Registered dietitian Jenna Braddock joins us today to talk about her new cookbook, Easy Cooking for Two, 75 perfectly portioned recipes. So I want you to stick around because you're going to get advice on stocking a healthy pantry when you are cooking for two people and not a crowd. You're going to get easy ways to keep fresh herbs fresher when you buy that big bunch, but you only need a small handful. We're going to talk about benefits to cooking for two, hello, less food waste. And we're going to talk about a bunch of recipes from the cookbook, including Jenna's Adobo Turkey Tacos, her warm quinoa salad, and Mango Salsa Pork Chops. So Jenna Braddock, she is a registered dietitian. She is a certified specialist in sports dietetics, something I am not. She lives in Florida with her husband and two kids. I'm very jealous. And she hosts the blog, Make Healthy Easy. I love that. It's all about easy with Jenna. She and I are hosting a giveaway, by the way, for her new cookbook. So if you want to enter for a chance to win Easy Cooking for Two, head to my Instagram page. I'm at Liz Weiss, or Jenna's page at make.healthy.easy. You can enter there, or you can go to the show notes page from today's episode because, always you can enter on my blog. And the great thing about the show notes page is that you can listen to the podcast there. You can check out the recipes we talked about on the show. And of course, you can enter. This is a US giveaway only. Okay, a few friendly reminders. If you love the show, tell a friend about it or post a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on lizshealthytable.com and be sure to check out the show notes, obviously, from today's show, but all past episodes. The website and blog is packed with good information for you guys. And then follow me on Instagram. Okay, that's enough of me. I am excited to welcome Jenna to the podcast. I am now recording on Zoom. That's the new thing I'm doing around here. So give me a second. I'm going to click a few buttons and we will bring Jenna into the conversation. There she is. I didn't even have to click the buttons. She clicked the buttons.
I got you, Liz.
Well, you're so savvy, we're all getting good at Zoom. So thank you for joining us. Welcome to the podcast.
I am very happy to be here to get to speak with you, a favorite friend and colleague, as well as your audience.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So I mentioned in the intro that you live in Florida. Tell us where you live. Tell us about your family. And I know you're a football family, so we kind of have to talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm in St. Augustine, Florida. I'm actually originally from Florida. I am a native. So there are a few of us out there in the world, and I am one. And so my husband is a head high school football coach. So we are absolutely a football family. I love being a coach's wife. I love our program. And we have two little boys, 7 and 9 years old. They're growing up in that culture as well, which it's really a family community. We feel very strongly about not just winning games, that's a lot of fun, but really investing in our players and their families and helping to build young men of character. So that's definitely a big piece of our life, in addition to, the health and wellness things that I do as well.
So I have two boys, and, it seems like when I interviewed Sharon Palmer on my last podcast, she has two boys. I think we have like a 2-boy trend going on here. But, you mentioned your husband's a football coach, high school football coach. I know I've told you this before, but several years ago, I was completely obsessed with Friday Night Lights. I mean, that's like the first show I ever really binged on. I did love, I was team Matt all the way. I loved Matt, but anyway, it's the quarterback. So it gets me thinking, about all those team get-togethers. I don't know if you're able to do them now with COVID, but I know in the past you did them. And when everybody would kind of get together at the coach's house, Tammy, the wife, she'd make all this food. So when you had the whole team over and you are the dietitian, are you kind of thinking, going to squeeze in a little nutrition there? Like, how do you balance that? You're going to feed this crowd of hungry guys, but any nutrition strategy there?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, Liz, because it can be a struggle. I say my husband and the football guys, they keep me real. Like they ground me to what real people are thinking and eating. And so, I've done a variety of different things. One thing I've realized usually works really well is to put some sort of fresh fruit out for them to nibble on. So whether that's grapes or watermelon or strawberries, just something that's out that's really easy and sweet, that tends to go over really well. And I know at least we're getting some kind of produce in here. And then they'll usually eat like some sort of salad. So I try to always get that in there as well. And then if we're doing like tacos, there's definitely the tomatoes and lettuce and stuff to put on top of there. And again, with the kids and me, it's all about exposure, so it may not, settle in that night that they're like, I love my vegetables because I ate at your house. But at least they've seen it, and we can have a conversation. I find out people don't like all kinds of interesting things that are very different than my preferences. And it just kind of helps me remember that everybody is unique and different, and that's okay. And you can start anywhere you are.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And what does dinner look like at your house? Because, for me with the two boys, as they got older, they just ate a ridiculous amount of food. And I always tell people, if you have a picky toddler, a picky teen, even as they get older, especially when they go to college, if they go to college and the food's so awful, they come home, they will literally eat anything. So what's family dinner like at your house? You guys eat together every night? How do you get your boys interested, in what you're making and kind of focused on that meal?
Yeah. So I think feeding your family, no matter who you are, is always challenging just because of the different pulls in your life or different food preferences. If I lived all by myself, I would probably eat and cook very differently than I do because I live with three men, So we try very hard that when we're able to, we sit down at the dinner table together. And especially in the off season, this is very feasible for us to do. My husband in season usually isn't getting home till almost after bedtime. So me and the three boys are typically eating together at that time. And I like to take advantage of the nights when we don't have things going on to sit and eat together. And I usually try to make it a blend of like what I really like to eat, which is slightly different than my family, just to be completely honest. And then always incorporating their favorites in there as well, like tacos and spaghetti night, just the traditional classic family meals. And then I'll throw in, like last night, I made a meal with sorghum and I loved it. And it was their first time eating it. And they're like, it's okay. And I'm like, hey, that's a win. I take it's okay.
The fact that they took a bite and they're trying something brand new. Absolutely. I'll probably, end up doing a sorghum show one of these days. It's a whole grain, it's gluten-free grain, and it's kind of slowly gaining in popularity. So, hey, I'm glad you tried
I thought
that.
It was delicious.
Yeah,
I loved it.
It's got a great texture, right? It's kind of hearty.
It does. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. So, all right. Oh, your website. I mentioned at the very beginning in the intro that you are at make.healthy.easy on Instagram, but tell us about your website. You've been blogging for a really long time, kind of your food philosophy, your website, and then we'll get into your new cookbook.
Oh, thanks, Liz. Yeah, you were one of the original people inspiring us to start blogs way back when. So it's on its, several iterations now of getting up to speed. But yeah, I really kind of organically came on the idea of Make Healthy Easy. I was thinking about rebranding something more just true to who I was. And I actually just posted something on Instagram. Thank you, Instagram. And just used the hashtag Make Healthy Easy because it fit what I was saying. And like at that moment, I was like, this is it. This is who I am. Like, I want to really help make healthy easy for everyone. So there it was born. And so it's definitely food focused with lots of recipes. They're all doable and delicious. That's what I always like to say. And my family, as you've already learned a little bit about them, is always a taste tester for me and making sure it's delicious there. And then I'm also expanding into health and wellness. I'm a personal trainer as well. I do sports. So I like to bring in those topics. I just posted on Florida farming. So you'll find kind of a wide array of topics there. But really my main goal when people come to Make Healthy Easy is that they say, I feel like I'm not alone anymore, or I can do that. So those are really the two things I want people to say as they read my content.
That's awesome. And I'm all with you. If we want people to eat a healthy diet, it has to be easy and affordable, certainly. You'll be very proud of me. I did the Peloton this morning for 20 minutes and then I did a stretch. And after I did the Peloton, I had these little weights and I was doing my little arm weights. I am like a non-exerciser. I mean, I say this, I love to walk. I like to do yoga. Yeah. It is I can always empathize with people who struggle to eat a healthy diet because I struggle to get that physical activity into my day. It's just not in my DNA. Yeah. And so knowing I was interviewing you and you're like, oh, I'm going to be working out in the morning. I'm like, oh gosh, I better do the same thing, but it's hard.
No judgment ever. Yeah. Well, and COVID has shook up the world in so many different ways. And I think one of the silver linings is that so many people found fitness accessible in their homes. They found people in their little pod to be physically active with, or they began to use it as a break or a stress reliever in their day. And I love that because one thing I like to teach people is so often we go into exercise just saying, oh, I'm here to exchange work for calories. I want to make sure I burn this many calories. And that's all that counts. And when we shortchange fitness in that way, we don't open ourselves to the wide array of benefits we could be getting. And we don't remain flexible listening to our bodies. So if our body doesn't like something or it's not working for us, we're often afraid to not do it because we just need to burn a certain amount of calories. So I really love to open people's minds of let's find things that is actually enjoyable or doable for you, or, not just walk into it trying to get calories out of it because you're really shortchanging all the benefits.
Yeah. For me, I don't do it for calorie burning because I have a very high metabolism and I'm one of these people. I know everyone's going to hate me and I apologize for saying this, but I have a hard time gaining weight. It's just not in my metabolism. However, if I would gain more muscle, then maybe, I could bulk up a little bit. I always say, so my Peloton name is Olive Oil 60. If you remember Popeye's girlfriend, Olive Oil with the skinny arms. And, and I turned 60 this year. I'm able to talk about that more freely these days. Didn't really love that birthday, but it was actually in August. But, it's for me, I'm just trying to feel like stretch and just feel a little better. It's like that self-care thing, which I think is really blown up in popularity since COVID. We have to take care of ourselves, especially the parents out there who are really working hard and the grandparents, to take care of the kiddos.
Absolutely.
All right, let's do this. Let's talk about your book. I think during COVID, the whole batch cooking thing was huge, right? People are cooking big batches of food. They're freezing. They're like sick of cooking. They want to make that big chili. We talk about meal prepping and planning and making the big pot of the batch thing on the Sunday. But your book is like so different. It's easy cooking for two. Why a book on cooking for two? Is this obviously it's something people are looking for? I'm an empty nester. I'm looking for it. But why this book and why this book now for you?
Yeah. Well, so this opportunity kind of came to me. So it wasn't like my brilliant brainchild, but once I engaged with what they were trying to go for, I was all in. And so there's a lot of people in situations who don't want to cook a large meal for a variety of reasons, right? Whether there's only two of you, there's only one of you, you don't want leftovers, you end up throwing stuff away, or you want to try something new, but you don't want to make a large amount of it because what if you don't care for it? And so this book really gives all those people, all those situations, a solution for low risk, delicious, healthy cooking. So each recipe is only 2 portions, which the other cool thing is there's not a lot of options out there for that situation. Most people are doing math in their head to divide out. And I've realized in preparing this and also now being aware of it, it's so much easier to double or triple a recipe than it is to cut it in half. And so we've made that really easy for people to start with this base recipe. And especially in like the protein options, if it's using 2 chicken thighs and there's 4 of you, well, you simply make 4 chicken thighs, very easy math there for you. So it was a lot of fun. And the other cool thing about only cooking 2 portions is that it makes cooking fast. So you're not doing tons of batches in your skillet or needing, like, I don't have time to sear all these things. You're only making 2. So if you have the right size skillet, which we talk about some of the good tools to have here in the book, your cooking is fast. Almost every single recipe is under 30 minutes or less to prepare. And that was really important to me too.
I love that. And I love the math because I always joke with people, when my kids were in elementary school, I'm like, okay, you have graduated 2nd grade. If you need help with math, do not ask me. Oh my gosh. And the other night, Tim, my husband, we tease each other all the time about like, oh, when you were growing up, your mother was messed up. Like she did this, she did that, we just tease each other. No wonder you're so whatever. Your father did whatever. Anyway, he's like, Liz, your parents told you when you were younger, listen, Lizzie, I was Lizzie growing up. Listen, Lizzie, just get a D in math. Just get a D. We just don't want you to fail. But if you get a D or a little better, we're cool with that. And so the expectation was like seriously low. That was not good. That was not good parenting. Yeah. But needless to say, the math in your book is spectacular because I can double.
Yes.
I love that. So for people listening then who have a family of 4 or 5, they can just say, oh, I love Jenna's chicken, whatever recipe. I'm just going to double it. Easy peasy.
Which is what I do all the time. I actually cook from this book often. It's in my regular weekly rotation and I'm just doubling it. Or if I know, like going back to our kids, if I'm making something where they're either not super excited or it's new to them, just making 2 portions, for me and my husband, I can make them just very small tastes of it. And once again, there's no food waste. So I love that element of this book as well. Of one of the reasons we waste so much food is because we simply throw it out. We just have more than we need or more than we can consume. And so I would rather people cook less and eat it all than cook too much in fear, which I think sometimes women, as we prepare for other people, we're like, oh my word, the worst thing ever would be to not have enough food, right? Is it really the worst thing ever? I mean, we can pull some chips out of the cupboard, like it'll be fine. So let's start by making a little bit less and see if we actually consume that food and throw out less.
So what are the benefits then? So you talked about less food waste. So cooking for 2, less food waste. Cooking for 2, you can you and your husband can make something for dinner and, like you said, make a few tastes for the kids. So it's a great way to introduce the kids to new flavors. What are some other benefits?
Well, I think it's a great way for you as well to just experiment with doing something different and not committing to the full recipe. So, I love cookbooks. You may as well. Your readers might enjoy them, and you'll flip through and you're like, ooh, that sounds interesting. But am I going to like it? It sounds a little crazy. And you end up with this big batch and maybe you like it, maybe you don't. So this allows you to try something with much low risk on that end. So I like that kind of adventurous element to it. Then the other thing I tried to really bring out in this book, which is connected to food waste, but also to avoid the condiment graveyard. So whether that's in your fridge or in your pantry, you buy that one special thing for one recipe, right? And you're like, I'll never use it again. So anytime I used a spice, a seasoning, or a sauce in this book, I made sure I used it at least one other time. So that way, if you enjoy it, you have more than one way to enjoy it, not just the same recipe over and over again, and then you get burnt out. And then also your fridge is not, the graveyard of all these different condiments.
Oh, I am so guilty. I'm not going to open my fridge. We're on camera now because we're Zooming, but I'm not going to show people my fridge because I have some things in the graveyard for sure. I got these, it was the chilies and adobo, in the can. Man, they were spicy. And they went into a recipe. And then I ended up just freezing them because I thought, I'm not sure when I'm going to use those again. So that was like something I could do. So the graveyard, I solved that dilemma. So, but talk about some of the recipes. So how did you structure the book then? What kinds of recipes can we get or anticipate from the book?
Yeah, so there's several different sections. So there's first a vegetarian and vegan section. And I did try to keep the majority of them vegan just because so there'd be more options for people. So I have a close family member who I dearly love who is vegan. So I really had her in mind. It was very personal. What would I want to make if she came over to my home that would still be enjoyable and not be like, oh, here's your vegan side dish. No, it would feel like a normal food that we would all eat and enjoy as well, whether you were looking for animal protein or not. So we have that chapter. Then we have lighter fare, which is soups and salads, which is a lot of fun. And I tried to think outside of the normal salad range, like what would be different. So there's a steak with roasted strawberries and farro salad, which if you haven't roasted strawberries and served them with steak, you're missing out. It's so delicious. It's one of my favorite surprise combinations.
I love that. Wow. Roasted strawberries.
Yeah. So there is actually 2 recipes that do that. Then there's a seafood chapter, which being in Florida, I love seafood. Like I have yet to meet a seafood I do not like. So I wanted to make the seafood accessible. I wanted it to maybe entice people that don't eat seafood regularly. So I tried just, some simple tacos in there. In addition, I was like, I want to put in how to do easy lobster tails because I happen to love lobster. And I know that's a higher price item and you may not think of it for a quick weeknight dinner, but it's actually super quick. And if you ever happen to catch it on sale, it can be a really delightful, quick dinner and just really delicious and good. So there's the seafood and then there's poultry and then pork and steak or beef as well at the end.
So no dessert.
There is not dessert, which—
How dare you?
I know. One of my neighbors was my trusted taste tester during this whole process. And it got to the point I was over there so frequently. I heard her husband from the back, when are we getting dessert? And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I hope publisher world out there, I would be happy to do a dessert cookbook one day. But there is no dessert in this guy.
And I think desserts are easy. People, you could get a little scoop of ice cream or frozen yogurt with strawberries on top. And so I get that. Hey, I want to get back to food waste while I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Because now, during COVID, we had Simon home from University of Vermont. He came home in March and he stayed for a while, went back to school in September. But I loved having him here because it was, I don't know if he loved it, but we were back to family meals and I was cooking a lot. It was great. But now we're back to, being empty nesters. And a lot of recipes I make, I'll add fresh herbs. I love cilantro. I love parsley, basil, mint. But, when you buy that mega bunch of parsley and you're cooking for 2, it's so irritating to me. I wish they would sell smaller bunches, but how do you keep it fresher for longer? Do you have any hacks or tips on that?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Well, the first thing I would say too is don't be afraid to rely on some dried herbs. And I actually use that in this book for that main purpose of reducing the food waste that comes along with that. So, if you don't like that problem, you can always use dried herbs in that situation. But there's 2 things that I do. One is I always wash them and I will salad spin them to get the extra water off, let them dry. And then I'll either store them, if I have room in my fridge, in like a glass with water put in the bottom. So they're kind of a beautiful bouquet in the fridge, and that keeps them fresh. And if I don't have room for that, I will, after they're dried, wrap them in a dry paper towel and then put them in a reusable bag, like a stasher bag, one of the reusable Ziploc bags. And that helps keep them fresher longer for me as well. And then the third piece is just, we'll try to think about 2 to 3 recipes that you can use that same ingredient for. And when it comes to my book, I actually did some of that thinking for you. So I'm just going to show this on the video. I know people can't see, but on page 10 and 11, I actually do a meal plan that shows you how to use your ingredients up. So like if you're buying kale and yogurt, you'll see 2 recipes in that week that use that. So it's not just one. And they're very different. It doesn't feel like you're eating the exact same thing over and over again.
I love that. So as people are meal planning, they're thinking, okay, I've got this bunch of parsley, rather than stressing about it going bad, I'm going to use it, through the week.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. That's super cool that you have that feature in the book. Okay. So we've talked about the chapters. What's your kids' favorite in the book? Like, because you said, they were taste testing, obviously, but do they have a favorite recipe in the book?
Well, my oldest son is very vocal about his favorite. So there is a individual taco bowl in the beef chapter where you bake the tortilla in a muffin cup. So it like has a bowl shape to it. So I was kind of trying to think, okay, how can I do a tostada feel for just one person that doesn't involve frying anything and having lots extra? So you just form a little bowl and bake it so it gets crispy and keeps the shell. And then you make a quick refried bean with a little crumbled ground beef in it. and then bake it with cheese on top, and then put all your toppings on top of the open, like it looks like a flower, almost a taco flower. And he just loves it. And you can cut it with a knife, or you can just eat it with your hands, which he loves to do. And it's just like not your typical taco night. That's just a little bit more fun and interesting with the good crunchy texture in there as well.
That's something I would like. I like the sound of that a lot. So I made your turkey tacos, and so I go to the grocery store and I buy a pound of turkey. And I'm irritated by this because now I have to freeze half of it because the recipe calls for 8 ounces. And then after, I don't know if we emailed or I read the chapter, more deeply, and you basically gave this tip. And I was like, Liz, you are a numbskull. You basically say, go to the meat counter and say, listen, I'm holding to the guy or gal, I'm holding this package. It's a pound of turkey, but I only need, I'm an empty nester. I'm cooking for 2. I only need 8 ounces. Can you please split this for me and reprice it? And then I'm just going to go home with the 8 ounces. Brilliant. I mean, these are like, we have to rethink, I think, how we grocery shop in a way too.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that was an option for you. I know in Florida.
No, I didn't do it. I didn't ask because it was too late. But I'm going to do it next time.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it next time.
Let me know how that goes. Because in Florida, we have different grocery stores that will do that. And most of the time, it's no problem at all. In fact, I made sure that I did that with all the recipes in here where I suggested to do that, because I want to make sure this is a real usable tip for people. But yeah, it's simply just rethinking the way that we approach that. I don't have to buy that amount in these different sections of the grocery store just because that's how you presented it. They're usually more than happy to position it or package it up in different ways. And in some of like the cuts of beef, I recommend cutting it in half and only cooking half of it. Well, make your butcher do that for you. Not make them, ask them to do that for you.
You will do this for me.
Yeah, they're typically more than happy to help you out with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we have to develop more of a relationship with the people who work in the grocery store. It's like they're your ally, right?
Yeah.
So utilize that. Yeah. No, I love that. So I made the turkey tacos, and I'm going to pull this recipe out. I have an e-copy of your book. So I was printing a bunch of the recipes out, and let's see. Oh, yeah. Adobo turkey nachos. I'm reading it, but yet I'm not reading it clearly. My brain is short circuiting. So the recipe calls for just some diced onion, and you saute the diced onion, and then you call for adding some broccoli slaw. I could not find broccoli slaw, so I just bought a bag of like veggie slaw. It had different veggies in it. Perfect. And I might have added a little more than a cup, and then 8 ounces of the ground turkey. And then you call for adding a teaspoon of adobo seasoning. So now this is where I could not find the adobo seasoning. So I used some other like chipotle chili, something or other. But I actually made this with my intern, Jordan. We cooked together on Zoom, and she had found the adobo seasoning, and she was like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing. So can you tell everybody about like adobo seasoning, what's in it? And anyone watching this, maybe we'll include a picture in the show notes, but I need to look for this.
It with
me.
Wow,
that's big. That's a big.
This is a big one. Normally it's not this big, but so adobo is a Latin seasoning blend. So I'm from South Florida originally. I grew up eating Cuban food and all these different influences from Latin America and the Caribbean. And so I'm very familiar with adobo. You can find it at any grocery store down here. But this actually found at my Aldi. So, they usually only have one size option. I'm sure you can find smaller. You can also find it on Amazon, I'm certain. And so this is just a wonderful mix of salt, garlic, lime juice, spices, turmeric, and some olive oil concentration. And so my thought behind using this is I wanted to, again, minimize ingredients, but maximize flavor. And so relying on a couple of key spice blends allows you to not have a ton of different things and be able to season with less salt, but still get tremendous flavor. And because this was one I thought maybe most people weren't familiar with, it could really be a game changer in their cooking. So I love adobo, and I loved it in those turkey nachos. See, you got me saying tacos now.
Sorry.
It's okay, because you've got those great veggies in there. You have your lean protein in there, and then you just give it this pop of flavor that is so unique. So it's not your everyday nacho flavor.
And Jordan, my intern, was able to find the seasoning. I was on Nantucket, which is, this little island off of Cape Cod where I've been living. And the supermarket just doesn't have as much as maybe other supermarkets, or perhaps I didn't see it. because if I can't even read the word nacho, I got some little situation with the eyesight going on here.
If you can't find it, I will send you some.
Well, I can go to Amazon too, but thank you for the offer. So you make this turkey mixture and then you put tortilla chips. I use the lime flavored ones on a baking
good
sheet.
Choice.
Yes, and then you top it with the turkey and some shredded cheese, and then when it comes out of the oven, you let that melt and the chips kind of bake a little, and then you top it with diced tomato and chopped lettuce, and then you call for sour cream. I actually use Greek yogurt. Like I typically never use sour cream, but I see that you do use sour cream. I'm a Greek yogurt girl. Why do you prefer sour cream then?
Well, I do love sour cream. I also don't mind Greek yogurt at all. I'll be quite honest. I'm married to a man that's like, Greek yogurt is not sour cream. So please do not present it as such. We're very black and white here about things. So sour cream is the one and only option for some household members. But I keep Greek yogurt. You'll see plain Greek yogurt actually in multiple recipes in this cookbook because I love it. And the nice thing is, say you are doing a vegetarian version, you use that for your quote sour cream flavor. You're also getting a good dose of protein. So I'm with you on that. You can use whichever one you like. You could use a vegetarian or a non-dairy option as well, if that's something you need. Right. So you have a lot of choices there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so funny that your husband is like, don't even think about it. This is not a substitution in my world, maybe in your dietitian world, but not my.
Yeah. I told you he keeps me real, Liz.
I need to be a fly on the wall for 1 week at your house. Friday Night Lights.
Friday Night Lights. Funny stories.
But, and the Friday Night Lights, I mean, that's like your world, right?
Yeah.
They play on Friday night?
I am Tammy Taylor. That's my hashtag. So she's my girl. I get her. She gets me.
Oh my gosh. For anyone listening, if you did not watch Friday Night Lights, it's such a silly show. There's no way my husband would have ever watched it. I mean, just getting him to sit with me and watch some of these, like Emily in Paris, that was not going to happen. Yeah. In fact, when I was binging on Emily in Paris, I would say to Tim, it would be like 5 o'clock. I'm like, I'm going to go up to the bedroom and bring my computer. I'm going to do yoga up there. And I'd go up, put the mat on the floor, turn on the TV and watch like 3 episodes sitting on the yoga mat. In case he walked in, I'd be like, oh, just doing a little warrior 2 here.
So you caught me right in the middle of it.
True confession. The other recipe, and I have not made it yet, but the warm quinoa salad. So before we talk about that, like I'm a big believer in having a well-stocked pantry. And I felt like when I went through your book, I was like, oh my gosh, I can make so many of these recipes because my pantry is like vibing with Jenna's pantry. How important is it to have that well-stocked pantry?
Yeah, I agree. I love having ingredients on hand that you can turn into several different things. And that's definitely what I was thinking with this cookbook. I wanted it to be accessible. I wanted it to be affordable. And quite frankly, a lot of our pantry staples are both affordable and healthy, and you don't have to worry about the food waste because it's shelf stable. So that I try to rely on those ingredients as much as possible for all of those reasons. And so when you have those things on hand, when you get comfortable working with some key, nutritious, delicious ingredients, you can whip up meals in no time. So yeah, it's very important.
So talk about this recipe, the warm, I'm going to read slowly. Look at the recipe, Liz. Warm quinoa salad. Yes, it's on page 24 of the book. But tell us, like, what's in this recipe and how do you make it? Because I actually might make this for dinner tonight because it just looks so good.
Oh, thank you. Well, first of all, I wanted it to be warm so that it felt like an entree. Sometimes just simply changing one little element of a common food makes it feel more comforting and warm and dinnery versus, oh, this is just a light lunch on the go, so just a little key like that. And then I cook the quinoa in reduced sodium vegetable broth just to add some more flavor in there. Again, reducing the need for salt and other agents like that. And then this actually uses one of my favorite tricks in this book for getting kind of hidden vegetables into your meals without visually feeling overwhelmed. And that's once the quinoa is warm and cooked and done, you fold in the chopped spinach into it. So it's going to wilt a little bit. My husband does not like the taste of raw spinach in his mouth, which it can feel a little, grimy at times, right? But when it's wilted into the quinoa, you can get a lot more in a small amount, nobody notices. And then it doesn't have that kind of gritty texture. So you'll see that trick actually in multiple recipes in this book of just a way to get some extra vegetables into your meal without visually overwhelming you. And then we use frozen edamame in here. So that's one of my favorite quick protein hacks is I buy the bags of frozen shelled edamame. They microwave in a pinch, and it's just great, delicious, satisfying protein in any type of meal. So that's in there. And then the great flavor for this, I think, comes from red wine vinegar, which adds this amazing little pop of flavor, once again, without extra calories or energy, sugar, salt, none of those things are being used there. It just has this amazing flavor to it. If you really like it, add more. It's totally up to you. And then the dried cherries add some sweetness, or you were saying you could use a variety of different fruits here. So what we're just going for is sweet and savory, crunchy and chewy. So we're just getting all these different acid and sweet. So all these varying different flavors and textures so that this meal is super satisfying. It doesn't eat flat. You're always getting kind of a different flavor in the bites that you take.
Yeah. And I think too, when food has good flavor, we actually eat less. And I think everybody can relate to getting a piece of chocolate and it's so good. And you're just you just sort of savor it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get a yucky piece of chocolate, like a cheapo, whatever, it's not satisfying. I find you eat more because you're okay, I know I'm going to get that chocolate in the next bite. Never happens. Yeah. So you have this beautiful flavors and you eat slowly, you enjoy, you're going to eat actually a little bit less. But I love that recipe. I think for me, I've got either raisins or dried cranberries at home right now. And for this, I might even throw in some chopped nuts. I have a lot of
I think that'd be a great idea.
Walnuts, pecans. In fact, you and I, before we hopped on Zoom earlier, I'm like, gosh, I'm hungry. I was grabbed a big handful of pecans. And then I could see you logged in. I was like, oh my gosh, eat, Jenna's
I would have been fine with you snacking. But one more thing to say about this recipe too, is for those people who are looking to eat more plant-based, but not miss out on deliciousness, this is a great recipe to start with.
Good stuff. And so you would say the recipes are family friendly then in the book. And even if you were to make this recipe, just have your kids take a tiny bite. I mean, it's so cute with the little edamame in there. I think kids would really like that.
Yeah. Well, and when I came up with this collection of recipes, I really thought of it from start to finish. Is there something for everyone? So I was thinking about, different age groups, different genders, different parts of the country, different ethnicities, and I'm not an expert in all of that, but I really tried hard where there would be ingredients everyone could at least connect with, and then maybe see something adjacent to what they're used to, but maybe something that has a little bit of adventure to it. So I really tried to reach all types of people in this cookbook.
Good stuff. Let's talk about a couple more recipes. I'm just going through all of my questions here. Oh, one thing that I noticed in the book is on page 59, you have a recipe for sheet pan shrimp bowls. Anything in a bowl makes me happy. And you also use frozen rice. And I want you to talk to people about frozen rice because as an empty nester who doesn't want to make a big pot of rice, what's your shortcut to making rice, brown or white, whatever you love, Jasmine, but less of it and quickly?
Yeah. So the freezer section for this book, I wanted to unlock the power of the freezer section because what I found is that many of the portions you find for freezer section items are perfect for two people, perfect for two servings.
Give us some examples.
So 10-ounce bags of frozen vegetables, perfectly roast out to just the right amount to two people. And then the example, a 10-ounce package of frozen brown rice is the perfect amount of rice for two people, maybe on a heartier night or to have just a little bit left over for lunch the next day. So, and then also I didn't even know all the options that were available in the frozen fruit and vegetable section. If you haven't been in a while, you need to go. There's just so many options. So I tried to utilize all the different ways to have shortcuts with grains and buying them frozen. They're already cooked. All you do is heat them up. You don't even have to cook, like get a pan dirty. It gets unbelievably
Just right in the
easy.
microwave. Yeah, the pouch.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm,
it's
mm-hmm.
awesome. And it's not just rice. They have all kinds of grains. They have mixes of grains. You can get, a grain with kale already in it. So one vegetable, check, so I just love that. And you'll see throughout this book that I utilize that. And if you're like, you know what, that is a little bit more rice than I want tonight, you just take out what you need and then put it back in the freezer and you've wasted nothing. So that was really important as well.
And there's also the boil in the bag brown rice. I find myself using that all the time because it's like 8 minutes. It's like a no-brainer. And it's like already kind of pre-portioned for you.
Yeah. And then the other one option that I found is these microwavable packets. So this is 90-second farro. And you do want to just mind the sodium on the back of them. They're all varying amounts, but they're getting a lot better. And you can even get rice cauliflower in a bag as well. So I was looking for all these fun products to play around with because I really wanted to find things that made these meals easy, but also still nutritious. So there's awesome options.
And you can get the riced cauliflower and broccoli in the freezer section now. I have not seen it in the microwavable bags, though. That's super cool.
Isn't this cool? Yeah. So I haven't actually tried this one yet, but because I found it recently. But I mean, there are like no more excuses for making really quick, easy vegetables. I mean, it just doesn't get any easier. And farro I use several times in the book. If you've not tried it, it's so delicious. It's got this nice, chewy, satisfying flavor. That is one my husband likes. And I'm like, oh, hallelujah. Like we have another whole grain we can do. And it cooks up pretty easily as well. And it's not a super expensive one either. Some of our ancient grains can be a little expensive, but farro seems to be really affordable.
Yeah. So farro is an ancient grain, whole grain, and quinoa as well. I have bought that frozen and I've certainly bought that in the pouch now. Boy, quinoa has come a long way. Remember when it first became popular, people called it quinoa, like nobody knew what my husband calls chipotle. Like the man can pronounce nothing. He'll eat everything, but he can't pronounce it to save his life.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should have like a Quinoa Through the Years documentary by now. Like, it led the way for food popularity.
People just, getting adventurous, trying different world cuisines. You also have, there's so many great recipes in the book. There's a recipe for mango salsa pork chops. And I wanted to talk about that because I think pork, for a lot of people, they are intimidated by it. They overcook it. And for starters, the whole trichinosis thing, they bred that out of the pork. It's not an issue anymore. And
don't worry, everything is fine.
Everything's fine in the pork aisle. And so after you spend a few hours in the frozen food aisle, because you're not going on vacation, right? Like I'm going to the grocery store. I'm going to be there a couple hours. I'm on a road trip. I'm on an adventure. But the mango salsa pork chops just looked so good to me. And I'm totally into mango right now as well. But why don't you talk us through that recipe? And then I just want to spend a few minutes talking about pork because I made it the other night and I didn't make this particular recipe. I made another pork recipe and it's so juicy and it's so lean and it is so good. But I feel like we don't turn to it. We turn to bacon, but we don't turn to pork as much as I think we should.
Yeah. Well, and I think just as a guess, people may associate pork with like fancy dinner or holiday dinner or so much work, or just they're intimidated because they haven't done it much. Or like, I think shake and bake pork chops from growing up, like no offense, Mom, but I didn't like them. They were not good to me. So this
I hope your mom doesn't tune in. I hope your husband doesn't tune in either, because nor mine.
We're very open about our food preferences in this family. But so this is a great example of using a boneless pork loin chop. So this is one that you can find in varying thicknesses. The thinner it is, the quicker it takes to cook. And that's an advantage, say, if you really only have 15 minutes to prep dinner. A real thin one, like a 1/4 of an inch one, which sometimes you can find, will cook up in like 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. And so this recipe is just quickly searing these pork chops, boneless pork chops, with just salt and pepper. So we create a nice crust on it. It gets that juicy. I recommend having a meat thermometer or a cooking thermometer, because really we want that internal temperature to 145 degrees. And that's where we still get that nice juiciness without being tough. Now it could look pink, but that if it reaches that temperature, it is good and cooked. It's safe to eat. And then the way we add flavor to this is by making a really simple mango salsa. So it's chopped up mango, little bit of jalapeno, which I think you actually cook a little bit in the hot pan after the mango just to take some of that fire out of it. So if you don't like heat, it'll tame that down a little bit and help the flavor come together. Red onion, a little bit of lime. So you get this savory, juicy, easy pork chop with this pop of flavor on top. You're getting extra fruits and vegetables in there as well. And then serving it with rice, which once again has my trick of cilantro blended right into it. So we're adding some natural flavor there to the rice. And then I think it's a bag of sugar snap peas or insert your favorite vegetable there. And I think we just steam it. So this is such a simple meal that has big, delicious flavor. And it's also beautiful, like because of the color. And so if you're just looking for something pretty on the plate, which people will eat pretty food, that's appealing, then this is a great recipe to do.
Yeah. And I think, when there's so much talk about plant-based eating, and we as dietitians want people to eat lots of plants. I like to use the term plant forward. And I always tell people that, your favorite foods are really your gateway to eating more plants. So if you, like this recipe is such a great example, you've got your pork chops as your main protein, but you've got this fruit salsa on top. And now you've got veggies on the side and you're including herbs. So there's just lots kind of happening. It's not like you're just having, pork chops and applesauce or whatever. There's just so much color and so much going on the plate. What else do you do with pork? What are some other favorite recipes?
Well, the one that's right before it in the book is chili lime pork chops. And this is probably one of my husband's favorite. In fact, I need to put it on our weekly menu because he likes that so much. And this uses another seasoning I use often in the book, which I brought to show you, and that's chipotle chili powder.
I have it. That's what I bought for the taco one because I didn't have the adobo, but then I really read the fine print and I realized, they're very different. But either way, I kind of used it.
Yeah. So probably most people are familiar with chili powder, but there's actually multiple different types. And so chipotle has this smokiness to it that I think adds, again, delicious flavor without a lot of work or ingredients. So that pork chop, you use that plus a little bit of lime juice and just a pinch of salt all over the pork chop, and then you sear it. So you get not a ton of that chipotle and just a little bit on that. And it makes it super flavorful. And then that one you're serving on the side with shredded purple cabbage that has shredded apple in it as well, which is kind of so we get that. It's that tip off to pork and apples, but in a really unique, fresh, crunchy way.
And I do love cabbage. Cabbage is, if you buy a head of cabbage, and sometimes they're small, like a grapefruit, and other times they look like a bowling ball. And I do try to get the smaller ones, but you can slice the cabbage up and add it to just about any salad. You can slice it up and saute it with onions and serve it with pasta. You can do, make Jenna's recipe. So there's actually a lot you can do, and it lasts forever in the fridge.
Yeah.
So that's good.
And that's one of those foods I added on this table about food waste. And I actually use that cabbage again in the baked tilapia tacos. So you can plan 2 very different meals that week to use up that purple cabbage.
I love that. Yeah. I actually like, when it comes to pork, I like pork tenderloin. So I'll always look for the loin. That's kind of my tip off, that it's a lean cut. And then I'm really trying to be careful with not overcooking it because I want it to be juicy and I don't want it to dry out. And then again, always making sure you have lots of plants with it. So there's a lot more, you can do with it, and it cooks up so quickly.
Yeah. So I actually have a pork tenderloin medallion recipe in this cookbook. And so if you were to roast the whole pork tenderloin, that takes a good bit of time. But when you cut it into medallion or circles and sear them in the pan, they're super quick and you still get that delicious, lean, juicy pork. And I think this one has a wine fig sauce, a quick wine and fig pan sauce that you use with it that I love. I love figs. I love wine. And so all of these are just delicious things coming together.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the dietary guidelines, they talk about different eating patterns. Some people eat a vegetarian diet. Some people eat a Mediterranean. Some people eat like an all-American diet, which I think is probably what you guys are eating. And pork, well, it's not going to fit in with vegetarian, certainly, but it certainly fits into these healthy eating plans with lots of plants and lots of lean protein. So it's good. Something good to think about.
And think beyond like the fried pork chop, or, I mean, that's a very Southern thing, and that's where I live. So that's why it comes to my mind all the time. But, there's so many easy, quick, and delicious ways to serve it for dinner alongside an accompaniment of plants.
Good stuff. And you personally, Jenna, do you have a favorite recipe in the book?
Well, someone recently asked me that, and I was like, oh, I love this one. Oh, but I love this one as well. And this one. So I probably have like favorites per section. But what I'd say, based on which one I make the most for my family, we'll go with that one, is the apricot chicken recipe. Let me see. I can't remember what I serve on this side with that one. Oh, yeah. Apricot chicken with spinach rice. And I make this one on the regular. So it's just skinless chicken thighs. And then you make a pan sauce with a little apricot preserves and balsamic vinegar. Very simple. And it just coats it beautifully. So you get delicious flavor. And then you're folding that spinach into a side of rice. And you've got this quick, easy meal that to me tastes very fancy and satisfying. And I could eat it once a week. I just think it's delicious.
Yeah. Yeah. And turkey, or chicken thighs rather, are so inexpensive and they're juicy.
Yeah. And one of the tips I found in this situation with cooking with two is I'll buy the frozen bag of chicken thighs. So you can just take out the two you need for your meal, defrost them, and be ready to roll. So that was great. I hadn't utilized that product before this cookbook, but it was a lifesaver.
Good stuff. So many great tips, tricks, hacks. I love it. I'm excited about the book. I want to remind everybody that we are doing a giveaway. So you can enter on my Instagram or Jenna's or over at the show notes from today's episode. And I am planning to run this on, March 23rd or 24th. And I think that's when your book officially is launched.
Yeah, you got it. It'll be the 23rd, I believe, of March. That's a Tuesday. That is the day. It's the big day. So if you pre-ordered it, that will be the day that it hopefully arrives on or right around.
Yeah, you must be so excited. I know you wrote the book, you had a short deadline to do it. I can't even imagine what your kitchen and your life looked like.
I have pictures I can show you.
I would love for you to send me a picture of your kitchen. It must have looked like, a tornado rolled through.
Well, I like to say, and I was posting, this was all last summer I was writing it. My kitchen looked like chopped because I had like a whole counter of just different ingredients that I kept out visually. So I could always have ideas, this combination did not work. Okay, what else do I have to work with here? And, there are some days where I was at the grocery store every day. And, this is back when, for Florida, COVID was still, we were in the thick of it back then for where we were. So, you're masking up and disinfecting and like all this kind of stuff all the time. So it was like trying to avoid going as much as possible, but I was there all the time because I had to be.
Wow. And now we know that grocery stores are fine. They're
very safe.
So very safe. But back then I was in crazy town as well. I was wiping everything down.
We did not know what we know now.
Oh my gosh. I remember the first time, Tim ventured out to Trader Joe's and he comes in with the grocery bags. I'm like, don't bring the bags in the house. Don't put them on the kitchen floor. Oh my God. I kept the bags outside and then wiped everything down and moved it in. I mean, it was horrible. It was just
horrible. It was such a scary time.
It was scary. Yeah. And now, I actually do wear my 2 masks. I'm very careful. Washing my hands constantly, not good for a manicure, but I feel like the supermarkets have done a great job.
Absolutely. I feel so safe there and they're so helpful. And it was a good place to be. And I was there a lot for like 8 weeks.
Yeah. Oh my God. Remind everybody or tell everybody, because I'll have it in the show notes. Where can people find you online and on social media? How can people connect with you?
Absolutely. So my website is makehealthyeasy.com or jennabraddock.com. You can get there either way. You can find me on Instagram at make.healthy.easy. And then on Facebook at makehealthyeasy.com. And just as a little caveat to those who might still be parents, I also have a website dedicated to teen athletes and their parents called offseasonathlete.com.
I did not know that.
Yeah, you got to check it out. It's great. We have a post on there on, is creatine safe for teen athletes? And it's doing amazing. I think it's helping a lot of people. So I'm really excited about that.
Is it safe for teen athletes?
It is. It is safe.
Because creatine is it's like a muscle builder, right? Or it's supposed to help with muscle.
It helps you in the weight room to lift more and not be as fatigued so that you can build more muscle. So it's absolutely I should say it's becoming a more essential nutrition supplement for sports. So I feel very comfortable with it. The research has come a long way since I first began as a sports dietitian. So yeah, check that out if that's the zone of life you are in.
Not my zone of life, but that is good to know. And I will say, Jenna, and then we'll wrap it up. My son, Simon, who's at University of Vermont, he and his roommates have decided they need to gain weight. And so they are all going to the gym 3 and 4 times a week. I'm like, oh my gosh, please do not hurt yourself. And making smoothies. And he said, I bought this really good protein powder and it's organic. And, they're making smoothies twice a day and they have this weight gain chart. He's like, I'm cracking up just to hear these guys, the weight gain chart, they're all filling it out. And he looks good. I mean, he is very thin and he just wasn't he skis a lot, but he didn't have a lot of muscle tone. So I should tell him about your website.
Absolutely. Well, weight gain with athletes, particularly male athletes, is one of my specialties. I've worked with so many female athletes need it as well, helping them gain weight in a healthy, balanced weight that also keeps their future in mind. Because there's a lot of bad advice out there that can really screw up your mind or your body for the future.
Yeah. Good to know. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up now. And I cannot thank you enough for coming onto the podcast, Jenna. So thank you. Remind everybody, they can enter the giveaway, chance to win your book. But thank you so much and come back again sometime. And your audio just wigged out. So I think everybody knows that Jenna is waving goodbye. We're having there she is waving, if you can see. And I'm so glad our audio hung in there till the bitter end. But something happened because this is technology. Maybe the wind blew, but I can still see Jenna. And I'm just so thrilled she joined us on the podcast today. If you love the show, tell a friend about it, post a review on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, wherever you get your podcasts. Jenna just went off, so we don't see her anymore, but it was just so great to have her. I have so many great ideas, and I'm definitely going to make her quinoa salad for dinner tonight. So as always, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for listening to Liz's Healthy Table.